Those are our big three games that we highlighted. Obviously, it's three of the biggest storylines. Colorado burst onto the scene. They wormed their way all the way to the top spot. Guys, let's go down now conference scoreboards. Let's start out with the Pac-12, first conference to start 13-0 in the modern era. If you had bet me a lot of money that I could guess what conference that would be, I would never have taken the Pac-12. But because USC is now 2-0, Pac-12 has started the season 13-0. And let's start first with Utah in Florida. A low-scoring game, 14th ranked Utes welcomed Florida to town on Thursday night. And boy, Utah's defense did exactly what we thought it would do. It was physical, it was nasty, and it harassed Graham Mertz all night long. Graham Mertz actually kind of looked decent the first, 2-3 drives of the game. But Trey, after that, there was just nothing that went right. Florida played undisciplined. They had some really silly penalties. And Billy Napier, for all the staff that he has, right? The largest staff in the country as far as support staff goes, associate head coaches, etc. They looked underprepared. And just like the guys were not ready to play against a Utah team that was missing their starting quarterback.
And a lot of the penalties they had were game management penalties on the coaching staff, like two guys wearing the same number on a punt return, right?
Yeah,
that
unreal.
Extends a drive and gives Utah a touchdown. It's just the jokes write themselves when you have the largest staff in the country and you having things like that happen. And speaking of teams that just didn't look like SEC teams or didn't look like they should have an SEC patch on their jersey, Florida's another team that just got bullied up front by Utah's defensive line. They couldn't run the ball, 13 total rushing yards. Graham Mertz was forced to pass the ball 45 times. I don't think that Florida's going to win a lot of games if Graham Mertz has to pass the ball 45 times this year. And I think that the coaching staff would tell you that too. So nothing was working on the ground. They were forced into it, and credit Utah for having a fantastic game plan for Florida this year. And look, I think they had 3 trips to the red zone before the very end of the game, and they came away with 3 points. So it was just a comedy of errors for the Florida Gators up in Salt Lake City. Game they really want to forget really quickly, and a game they're going to have to forget because the schedule doesn't get much easier throughout the rest of the year.
Garrett, you were saying this Utah defense might be the best that Kyle Whittingham had ever had. The defensive line is just nasty. And then you get Bryson Barnes and Nick Johnson both playing kind of intermittent roles at the quarterback spot. They were very solid. What did you take away from Utah after this opening win?
Well, what I took away from Utah is they're going to be really good this year when Cam Rising gets back, and that's maybe a if as opposed to a win because he said he would be back for week 1. Now we don't know, anyways. But no, I mean you come out there, they had to hear all last season that they went down to the swamp and they got bullied and they weren't ready, they're frauds, they're not tough, and that's their identity. That's what they build their brand on, that they're tough, they can kind of be the physical team out there in the Pac-12. And to hear that all offseason clearly did not sit well with them because they came out and they punched Florida in the mouth and they were clearly the more physical team. I was so impressed, just the gumption to come out there on that first play on offense and hit a 70-yard bomb.
That was awesome.
That was amazing. I leapt off the couch.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, Utah, we are back. Let's do this. I was so excited. I mean, it's just fun, right? Because, you're saying you're missing Cam Rising. How are they going to move the football? I thought they were going to have to lean way heavier on the run than they did. And what they do, they come out there first play, 70 yards. I was like, wow, you got to say he is on pace to have the greatest season of all time through one pass attempt. Like he was incredible. So no, I was really impressed with Utah. Obviously, maybe not the highest scoring output for a team that averaged over 40, I think, last season, but you got to give Florida a little credit. They did play some good defense against some backup quarterbacks at times. And so, there's some mess ups, but give them the credit. They played okay defense against some good Utah players there. So I'm excited to see what happens for the Utes going forward. I'm excited to see what happens when Cam's back, but we'll have to wait and see and keep playing from there.
I thought running backs were going to be a big story of that game. Jaquindon Jackson, 5 carries, 15 yards. Trevor Etienne, 7 carries, 25 yards. I could not imagine a game taking place where the running backs were not featured, and yet that wasn't the case at all. Utah didn't need to go to the running backs all that consistently. And Florida couldn't get anything going because their offensive line was getting bullied just about every snap. Trey, you mentioned Mertz had to throw the ball 44 times. Not a recipe for success for the Florida Gators this year, next year, maybe any year under Billy Napier. A team that does want to throw the ball 44 times, as many times as they possibly can. Let's go to number 10, Washington, blowing the doors off Boise State, 56-19. Trey, this was a close game early on. In fact, Boise State shut out Washington in the fourth quarter, but Michael Penix Jr. decided to launch his Heisman campaign in the second quarter. They scored 28 points, went on to obviously blow it away. 450 yards, 5 touchdowns for Michael Penix Jr. Every time he drops back, it looks like you could have a Twitter clip ready to go.
Absolutely. And their offense is just tailor-made for his skill set. They love to air it out deep. He loves to chuck it up to his talented receivers. And they create a ton of mismatches down the field that Boise just eventually had no answers for. Boise did play tough. I want to give hats off to them because they were outmanned and outmatched. Taylon Green, struggled through the air, but I think they should have given him some more opportunities to make some plays with his legs early. I think that would have gotten him settled in a little bit more with a hostile crowd, but Washington was just too good, and they're still, looking good, looking on track to, push for not just a Pac-12 championship, but I really do think that they have a great shot to sneak into the college football playoff.
I would just like to take a moment to recognize Rome Odunze. 7 catches, 132
Silence
yards,
your haters. Call out
and
your
a
haters.
tutter. Listen, I got a lot of hate on a Twitter thread when I picked Odunze to win the Biletnikoff Award. Everyone else and their mother picked Marvin Harrison Jr., and I got accused of being different just for click's sake. Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. had 2 catches for 18 yards yesterday, Mr. Twitter person. Odunze is a feature of that offense, and it's not just going to be Rome. It's going to be Polk. It's going to be McMillan. You have so many weapons up there in Washington that the ball is going to get distributed. I mean, heck, Penix Jr.'s throwing for 450 yards. That's a warm-up. I promise you that will not be the high water mark that he throws for throughout the course of this year. But you have Odunze putting up numbers like that all year long. He will be a finalist for the Biletnikoff. Wasn't doing it for clicks. Doing it because I know ball, and I'm really excited to watch the Washington Huskies this season. Garrett, the rest of the Pac-12 slate was a little bit unremarkable. You have number 15 Oregon doing unspeakable things to Portland State. They hang 81 on Directional State. Cal beats you in
quick, man.
Yeah, poor host to say the least. Cal puts up 58 on North Texas to beat the Mean Green handily. USC blows out Nevada 66-14, Washington State 50, Colorado State 24. UCLA kind of struggles with Coastal 27-13, but eventually they pull it away. Trey, unfortunately, the over did not, in fact, hit in that game. I can't believe we kept it to, 40 points? But indeed we did. Arizona 38, Northern Arizona 3, and Oregon State beats San Jose State 42-17. Garrett, as you look through the rest of those games, is there anything that stands out to you from the Conference of Champions?
Well, a couple things. Number one, Cal blowing up was clearly not something I think any of us expected. Massive output for them. We'll see if they can keep that up against a team with a pulse or a fan base, but we'll see what happens for Cal going forward in the season.
Green alone, sir.
Hey, look, I've got some insiders on the scene. Nobody was at that football game. So there's
it was 110. I don't necessarily blame them.
I wouldn't blame them either. Oregon, look, it's not impressive to beat the crap out of a 5-year-old. So like that's not something I would encourage. But that's what Oregon decided to do. They decided to hang 81 on Portland State because they felt bad or something. Maybe Bo Nix woke up on the wrong side of the bed. He was amazing, sensational. Bo was fantastic.
They went for 2 on their first touchdown, and I made the comment that wasn't very nice, and they were just getting started.
Right. I mean, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's not very nice to your friends down there in Portland. And then obviously, you're looking at USC. That last week, not a great performance defensively. This week, getting back on top of it, 14 points allowed to Nevada. It's going to have to be better for them on defense. Obviously, that was one thing that we talked about. And it was certainly better against Nevada. Let's see what happens going forward, but they still roll on offense. 66 feels like a pedestrian number for them at this point. So good job, USC. You're doing your thing again. And let's see if you can match some of that defense against better opponents later in the year.
Yeah,
Can we talk about DJU really quickly?
Well, I was going to give him a shout out. Yep, DJU at Oregon State. Boy, he turned it on today.
20 of 25, 239 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, a 92.9 QBR. A lot of people were saying that they didn't like the scheme fit that they were trying to run at Clemson for DJU, and that after Tony Elliott left for Virginia, that's really when things started to spiral for him. We'll see. I don't know. It's just one game. It's just San Jose State, not the most, electric competition. We've seen this from DJU before against not great secondaries, but I'm excited. My expectations have been heightened just a bit for what we can see from him at Oregon State this year. Kind
of rude of future Mountain West champion Oregon State to light up their conference foe like that, but it is what it is. It was so awkward. The CBS crew was like the D tier CBS crew. They had the brand new Mountain West commissioner in. They asked her, I believe, 3 questions. And then the guy was like, all right, well, thanks for joining us. And the interview lasted less than 5 minutes. It was, and all they asked her was like, hey, so how nervous are you about the Mountain West? Or like, what conversations are you having? It's just very, very strange. But DJU was the show. And boy, he did not disappoint.
Gracious. Yep. How about